So I think now we'll go to questions, and I'll just log in and take a look at the questions coming in here for the chat. So first question was about the R code. That is certainly available for download, and you can check out the link here. So havablair.github.io is where you can get it. And then let me see a few of the other questions coming in here. Let's see, can you control scaling between upper and lower? That's a good question. So I think this question is about the graphs themselves. And yes, you can control the scaling. I think the only caveat that I have to make there, you might have noticed that the scaling issue came up in the phosphorus and potassium graphs. That's the only case where I can't control the scaling because of the way that those color bars are displayed on the graphs. So if you're interested in that, I'm happy to go into the code if anybody has any specific questions, but that is mostly a challenge with the way that those color bars are created. Otherwise, you can independently scale those upper and lower axes. Next question is, do you have plans to do any shorter timescale sampling, such as throughout the season? And the answer is, for our study, we don't. So we're just doing sampling once in the year, and it's in the fall in our particular case. But I think there's huge value to doing that shorter timescale sampling. Just logistically, with the number of different sites that we have and the distance to travel, we decided for us that was not going to be possible. But I'm aware of at least one other student at Minnesota who's looking into doing that on one of a similar type of study, and would definitely be I would definitely be interested to hear more about the results there. Oh, and follow-up question to that, do you think you'd see changes due to shorter scale shorter time scale sampling throughout the season? And just purely speculating, yes, I'm sure we would see changes. I think in particular with some of the biological indicators that we're measuring, because we know that obviously biological processes are so tied to moisture and soil temperature and some of these different pieces, the life stage of the crop in the soil. So I think that's a good question, because it gets at this fact that when we're trying to make comparisons, like I was talking about, we need to be taking into account all of these different variables related to management and plant growth and weather, and that certainly adds many different things to track on longer scale and shorter scale sampling. And then another question, how were the sample locations within fields chosen? That's a really good question. I spent most of my summer last year working on that, so I'm happy to talk about that. I guess just if you imagine stepping onto the field, the main criteria that we were using was we knew we wanted to get 2 different soil types within the field. So I was started by identifying the field and just looking at the soil map to identify the different map units. And between the conventionally managed field and the soil health field, I knew I had to match up map units across those 2. So I needed a soil type that appeared in both places. So we were comparing the same type of soil and then the same hill slope position. And then other criteria that were applied were, pretty straightforward things. We were staying out of the headlands and staying off the edge of the field and trying to get in and just get a representative sample from these areas. And then the final question here, was there any hesitancy for the non-practice fields to participate? This is a good question, and it was really fun to work on developing and identifying these different sites, because I would say we had no problem finding these, what we're calling conventional management sites to participate. I actually had more people than I needed volunteer, and so we had to turn some folks down because we had, limited capacity. But for the most part, no, we did not have that hesitancy to participate. And I think that this is a good question, and maybe something to talk about that we've spent a lot of time in our research group talking about, is that we try to be really careful in all of the language that we use and all of our reports, that we're not injecting a lot of value-oriented language around this research, right? So we're in a data collection stage. We're trying to collect as much data as we can to understand what is changing when someone adopts soil health management, and how is that different? How is that soil different? What is the impact of that management compared to conventional management? And I think there's a way, I think it sometimes gets down to how you frame the issue and how you talk about things, but we really feel it's so important to not be talking about conventional management in a very, we value those conventional producers and the fact that they're making decisions, management decisions, based on what is best for their farm. And for the most part, they're all looking for more information too, they're excited about the data that we're collecting. So I think one of the reasons why we were successful in finding people to participate is that we were really open about the fact that this is a broad data collection effort. We're trying to get representative data from real working farms, and we recognize that there are many different reasons that someone might make a management decision to till or not to till. And those reasons go beyond soil science to, what it takes to run a business. So we were pretty excited to have as many people participating as we did, and found actually that there was a lot of interest even from people that haven't yet adopted soil health management, just to understand what's out there. We hear, I think farmers are hearing a lot about soil health management, and I definitely ran into some people that were interested in starting to get these practices going or try cover crops, but they just felt like they didn't have enough information or weren't currently there, but they were definitely curious. So those were definitely interesting conversations to have, for sure. All right, I think that's the end of our questions. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us today, and yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the information that you shared with us. And I know the farmers that I work with, there's an awful lot of interest in soil health and in how they can apply some of those management practices to improve soil health. And like you say, I think we're still in the data collection stage. So this is really good stuff. So I'm going to share my screen again, if I could. And what I would like to do is really thank everyone for joining us today. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And I really would invite everyone else to join us next week, May 13th, for another in our Soil Health Digital Cafe series. Next week is going to be the current webinar. It's provided by the North Central Region Water Network. Their webinar series, and the topic is going to be emergent contaminants, the microplastics, PFAS, and other soil contaminants. So thank you very much, Hava. I really appreciate your presenting today and the information you gave us, and I certainly hope everybody can join us again next week. So thank you very much, and have a good day, everyone.